Man, I don't know what happened. I think we had a little technical difficulty, but I did. One of the guys that helps with the show did send this to me. And see, it says, a Freudian slip is when you say one thing, but mean your mother. I mean another. So I think that I was getting carried away and trying to be maybe too hard on somebody that I won't mention again. And Karma was saying that you will have technical difficulties if you try to mock people when they're not there to defend themselves. So I'll give a proper shout out in a video that I do tomorrow, offering for this particular person I won't mention again to come on the stream. And, you know, we could have a discussion. The Britisher may be here. If not, Cap, somebody will be here and to be moderator. And they'll mute me if I try to talk over you, and they will mute you if you try to talk over me. That said, anyway, well, that's why I said one thing when I met my mother. I mean, another.
Yeah. No, you know, earlier we were talking about that situation with the girl and the and that EDL guy, and you sort of mentioned the Bobby, and you said, "Oh, that's a proper Bobby."
Yes.
Well, if you look in the side chat, I put a link in, and it links to a picture.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm gonna put it up.
That is the picture of the ceremony today of the policeman who got stabbed. You know, the guy that attacked Parliament.
Yeah.
So all the Bobbies turned out.
Mercy sake.
So it was
number
basically...
one daddy.
Sorry?
Sorry, the carriage says number one daddy.
Yep,
yes,
number one daddy.
He was a family man.
I mean, that's not that it's a terrible thing, but you know, you don't try to make me cry on air. We already had one technical difficulty. That is, I mean, when I see that, Britisher, I'm not going to lie to you, man. When I see them all in a row like that, shoulder to shoulder, it does what it does.
It was quite a distance through London, and I think it was in Westminster Abbey actually that they had a ceremony.
God bless him.
And as you can see, they had the mounted police and everything. Do you know, a while ago they were actually thinking of getting rid of the mounted police?
No,
because
I didn't know that.
In budget cuts, they were thinking of getting rid of it. And I think the police kind of pointed out to them that, look, if things get really serious, we do need the mounted police. So in things like, you know, football hooliganism or something like that, the mounted police are sort of one of the best forces they can deploy because no one's going to mess with them.
Nothing beats crowd control on a horse, period. Not a four-wheeler or something, because people can pull you off of that. The four-wheeler won't kick them. But if you try to grab a mounted police officer in New York City, that horse has been his friend, chances are, for a long time, as long as he's been on it. And that horse will bite you. It will rear up and tear you down, man. It'll kick you. And plus, the police officer will whop you with his billy club. I mean, let's not forget that. But yeah, for crowd control, there's nothing on earth. Why wouldn't so were they saying cruelty to animals is the reason why?
No. They were wanting to get rid of it because of budget cuts.
Oh well, what would they replace it with? Bicycles?
No, as I say, they had plans to replace it, but just basically get rid of it and just basically use you know, normal police. But I think the police kind of pointed out to them, look, it's just not going to fly. We need our mounted police because it is one of the sort of, it's one of the final stops. That basically, if you lose that, then you lose one of these vital weapons. I think one of the most impressive displays of mounted police use was somewhere in the 1980s with the big miners' strike, where there was a real battle, so to speak, between police and the miners. I don't know if you've ever heard of Arthur Scargill. He kind of tried to organize a national miners' strike under Thatcher.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
And I think it was the Nottingham collieries that didn't want to strike. So thousands of miners under Arthur Scargill kind of descended upon the Nottingham coal mines and tried to shut them down. And the government were determined these mines are going to stay open because the workers want to work. You are not going to shut them down. And there was a massive coming together of thousands of police against thousands of miners. And I've just been looking on YouTube, but I can't find any images of it. But there was actually during that battle, there was a literal mounted police charge.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I'm actually looking at the UK miners' strike, 1984 to 1985. But like you said, even on Wikipedia, they're the only pictures I'm coming to is like Blackhall Colliery and County Durham. Durham, huh? There's a Durham County, North Carolina, in 1970. That's probably where it comes from. They call it Scotland Counties right next door. There's so many Scottish people down there. I think there's actually more Scottish people in North Carolina and South Carolina than there's in Scotland. I'm almost positive of that. There's a lot
Well,
of
I mean, Durham, you've got, you've got the County Durham, and then you've got Durham itself, which is.
So is that Scotland?
The city. No, that's in northeast England.
Okay.
And of course, it's got Durham University and Durham Cathedral, which is a Romanesque cathedral, which is a fairly rare thing.
Yeah, I'm looking for because it's going to say a lot of things, but maybe in the political climate we're in, like where somebody hands a police officer a Pepsi Cola, it's like game over. The whole world catches on fire. There's a possibility that they won't mention that there was that charge by the police officers.
I mean, if you look at that clip I've just sent you there, at about 4 minutes and 6 seconds, you've got some horses there, but that's not the imagery I was talking about. But you can definitely see that amid the mayhem, there were horses loose.
I'm almost to 4 minutes and 6. I'll screen share it, but I'll tell you the thing of it is that if there was any problems. Oh yeah, there's about 2 or 3 frames. Let me see if I can stop.
British, I wanted to direct your attention to the side chat of our Hangout. Maybe something that you could deliver in your perfect accent.
What was that?
The one thing I posted just above Zero Cool.
There's a question there.
What was the greatest achievement in taxidermy? The Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
So would the policeman of London be second?
I'm sorry, that was funny. That was good. Because I seen it there anyway. I wasn't sure you were gonna say it, but that was very funny. You can see if there's any bummer to this, the bummer.
I hope you approve of my delivery, Mr. Doppelganger.
It was excellent. I'm sure he does. I think anyway. I don't know what the motivations was, but he has a wonderful sense of humor. He said exactly what we needed. A little something funny. That said, the police in this, I don't know. This is why I have a problem, Britisher, with being filmed everywhere you go in London. Because my goodness, man, I don't know. I guess it is. I am conflicted, so I'm just going to shut up. But right now, when I see this, I don't like the idea of someone using it against anybody. I'm sure that the miners did some crazy stuff. I'm sure that the police responded. I know that when you're dealing with government agencies, or when you're dealing with anyone, people tend to meet force with force. So if they don't, they lose. So if you don't meet force with force, and as I was saying before, the best force you could use is a non-stuffed Canadian. They still call them that. I don't get it. They call them Mounties. Everybody probably knows that in Canada. They don't have state police like we do here, or county police, sheriff's departments, what we'd call them, or city police. That's pretty much the rank of it. They have Mounties. Anyway.
Yeah, right. No, it's wasn't there that sort of comedy / crime series called Due South?
Due South,
which was a Mountie in Chicago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna look that up. I remember seeing a couple of them. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I wasn't overly impressed, so I don't remember watching more than like 1 or 2. I think it was a straight up TV show, right? I think so. Look at that right here. Yeah, Due South. I remember seeing it. I definitely remember this actor right here. He kind of looks like the mummy dude. Pop it up here. I mean, there's a reason why we make fun of Canadians down here. I mean, there really is. I mean, if you look at what's going on right now, Muslims have done some things over here that I would consider to be cool. They've also done some things I would consider to be not so cool. So somebody just went into but they make no laws about it. They make no laws about, and nothing about it. And then somebody goes into a mosque a little while ago, does whatever they do. And look, I want to keep it lighthearted. This is why we make fun of them. And then Trudeau is trying to pass a blasphemy law. I mean, as Americans, I'll be honest with you. We sit down here a lot and look up there and go, what the fuck are they thinking?
Yes, it does seem somewhat mistimed. Yes.
Yeah, well, we think the same thing about Mexico, but in a completely different way. I mean, it's obvious that Razorfist does a thing on why we need the wall, and he makes this. I looked into it myself, and he makes a supremely good case for the idea that the wall is as good for Mexico as it would ever be for the United States of America, because that wall is like a place where they, that border is a place where they can make money doing snakeheads, coyotes, bringing illegals over, trafficking drugs. A lot of the guys will pay. They'll pay $5,000 plus carry a 50-pound bale of marijuana, which Lord knows why that's illegal, and a kilo of cocaine. Lord knows why any drug's illegal. Because when you make them illegal, you get this kind. I don't know if anybody knows it, but they have submarines. They bust them, but they have submarines. And a lot of the times they just build them in rivers like the Amazon. They found a couple on the Amazon River. No kidding, no exaggeration. Look into it. And they build these submarines, but they build them sometimes so poorly. They basically take two boats, put them together, caulk them really well, wrap some bubble gum and duct tape around it, and go, adios, amigos, vaya con Dios. Comprendo? And they say, sí, jefe, hasta luego. And they take off with this, and not a lot, but I've read at least twice where those people died in there because they didn't have it ventilated. They just put a diesel motor in here, no ventilation. Apparently,
it's overrated.
Killed them. Anyway, but so for a totally different reason, we look down there and think the same thing that I'm not going to say flat out again.
Yeah, but if you look at the last link I sent you there, 0.43, you get the mounted police, and tell me you would get in the way of them.
0.43. Let me see here. It's just taking me a second to get to it. No, I already know the answer because I've been around. I'm telling you, I've been in New York City and I've been around. Oh, they say this is not the horses here. These are the people. Oh, I see why the people are going, because yes, there's nothing. There is nothing. You would need a tank at that point, or an armored vehicle, a Bradley or a Humvee. And then the Humvee I doubt it would get hung up on the carcasses of the people and animals, but it would definitely be somewhat of a problem. Now there is
also the factor that TV would pretty much go crazy if police started to pushing protesters with Humvees or other mechanized devices, whereas horses, as natural thing, feel kind of okay.
Well, it goes back, if you think of it, to the old tradition of dragoons.
Dragoons were using sabers.
Yes. But,
thank you so much, Doppelganger, for this link. Also, this is just go ahead, gentlemen. I'm just showing what I'm presenting. This is what I'm talking about. It's one of the
yes. There you go.
Yeah. What about the dragoons? That's one of my favorite topics.
Is that the Brazilian Navy? No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, that was one of the ways in which, in the sort of 17th and 18th century, they kept order. That effectively they had the dragoons, and if the mob went wild in one of the big cities, the dragoons would come out from the barracks.
There was a massacre by Cossacks, I believe, somewhere in Russia, St. Petersburg, or maybe Moscow. Perhaps you would remember.
What year was that?
If it's Cossacks, it's always a massacre. That's the problem.
Not Cossacks, as in guys mounted on horses.
I'm with you. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know much about. I don't know much about Russian history. I mean, I'd have to come up to probably, the last Tsar before I'm even foggy on it. I think
that was also one of the reasons why in French cities they liked their grand promenades. They weren't actually there, for people to promenade on. They were deliberately kept wide and open and straight, so that the military had access down them from the main barracks, so they could keep the mob under control. So you would have to imagine one of those grand avenues would be actually like a motorway for the dragoons to charge down.
Huh. Yeah, nobody wanted to stand in their way. Every time I hear dragoons, I think of a movie. I guess
you know, there is also that sort of participle, isn't it, to be dragooned?
Oh.
And that is precisely from, you know, it comes from that basically you send the dragoons out and you sort of herd the mob out of the way.
It's unfortunate that we still need things like this in the world, but in my humble opinion, I know that's how this started, was that they're going to stop because of funding. You know, I mean, I could ramble on about that, because every time I hear that we're not going to do something because of funding, I ask, well, what are you doing with the funding you have? Because
well, they've given up on the plan of getting rid of the mounted police. They have been convinced that they actually need them, but
well,
for a while there was a plan in place to get rid of them. But I mean, you know, the hooligan problem, the football hooligan problem, is now much diminished here in Britain. But you sort of feel, well, if it were ever to return, and you really have got 5,000-10,000, the mounted police is precisely the sort of thing that can get them back under control. Yeah. Or even if you have got a very large section, you know, if you forget the hooligans, if you've got a very large body of Antifa, and they're smashing up the city centre, you know,
it'd be time to, yeah, mounted police.
The mounted police might be the sort of thing you would send in against them.
Would you say that at some point we would need to police force mounted on pigs rather than horses?
Well, it would be more, I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that. It was funny, though. This is a light day. I don't know where that term comes from. I think that we get cops from the British language because of the copper badges they wore.
Yes.
They call them coppers.
What is it? There is Bobby and there is Peeler.
Peeler? Never heard that one.
Yeah, Bobby and Peeler, and both of them come from the fact that Robert Peel was the one who actually founded the police.
Oh, so okay, huh? I had no idea. We just call them what Doppelganger just said most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our own names for them. Usually it's like 5-0.
Well, I think the original inventor of the police was, what is it?
Here?
Udoc, wasn't it? François Eugène Udoc, I think he was called. And he was actually, he claimed never to have committed the original crime. But he was locked up in various prisons and then kept on escaping. And then they gave him, you know, sentences for having dared to escape. So he insisted to the bitter end, I think, that he had never actually committed the original crime. And there just didn't seem to be a prison in France that could hold him. He always managed to get out. And it was through his escaping that once he was escaped, the kind of class he needed to mingle with in order to keep himself out of jail were criminals. And I think it was at the last time that he was then caught again and locked up that he wrote a letter to the Ministry of Justice and said, look, I know more about the criminal classes than anybody in this country. Why, rather than just trying to lock me up in prison, don't you just use me? And he was the kind of man who kind of created the police force. Prior to that, it was basically soldiers, if you know what I mean. It was a militia. And he was the man who created an initial police force. And I believe he then went over to Britain and helped them found Scotland Yard.
Huh. No, I didn't know that. Why do they call it Scotland Yard?
I think that will have just been the name of that particular square that it was started.
Oh, okay. I mean, well, of course, you know, I'm thinking of Scotland. I've always asked myself that question: why in the world would they? Yeah,
well,
I mean,
see,
MCJK.
Over here, of course, all the streets and you know, roads and squares have, you know, names, so to speak. Whereas with you guys, more often than not, it's First Street and Second Avenue and whatever, isn't it?
Well, where I live, it's I'm not going to name any of the streets. We'll have more technical difficulties, but they're mostly named by like the families. So I'll tell you. Well, no, I don't really want to. Maybe it's also named by something that's been done there a lot. Like if they have a particular
if you
vocation.
have a parade there, if you have a parade there, it will be Parade Street or something like that.
Right. Or you know, if there's sheep that were on there, it'd be shear, you know, or it might be there's a road I know of called Stinking Creek Road.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, and the creek is sweet. You can drink out of. It's one of the few places I know where you can bend down and drink out of. But years and years ago, a horse fell in and died, and it smelled bad when they made the road there, and they called it Stinking Creek. But
that's what you would call a name with character.
Yeah, but I know why you say that, because everybody thinks of New York, and New York is avenues and streets. Avenues run one way, streets the other. That's why you can jump in any taxi cab anywhere in New York, and they don't have to be like you were saying, Britt, about how they have to pass these tests to be a cabbie in London. To be in London, cabbie, you have to have the map of London in your head, and that's not the way it is in New York. You can jump and say, "Take me to First Street and 57th Avenue." That's it. I mean, because it's just a grid mapped out that way. But that's not the way it is most places. In fact, in 2 states I've lived in, the old saying is, you stop and you say, "Hey, how do you get to Raleigh-Durham from here?" And the answer is, "You can't get there from here, Bo." Yeah, I mean, and things are different. I have been to states like, I think where Zero lives. It's in Iowa. It's like, man, everything's mile squares. You can tell somebody, go 5 miles, turn north, go a mile. You know, and you can give them directions by the compass. So if you're going north and somebody tells you to turn west, go west. Which way are you going, Brett?
Well, that really has to do with the fact that because we are farmland, as you head out from the Mississippi over to Nebraska and everything, we really started as farm communities, and then we expanded to our city communities. So that's kind of why we have the geography that we have, and everything is really squarish, even if within those squares, and if you look at our 99 counties on our map, it's very square. More so than anything.
Aren't your towns and cities largely made up on a roster? That everything's at right angles? Sorry?
A roster?
Yeah, that everything is kind of right angles.
That's what he's saying, yep.
Yeah, pretty much. And it is because we started as farms. So, and like I said, if you look at the 99 counties on our map, we are without a doubt one of the literally L7 squarest freaking states in the country, no matter, even if we've got hills that go really high, it's still within the boundaries of square. And that's just a farming thing, because it's really just for, because as I said, reiterating, it started with farms, and that's how we roll. Sorry.
Yeah, well, and it's the same way with Indiana, Ohio, large part, Nebraska, Kansas, Michigan, Minnesota. You have the cities, and the cities may not be quite that way, but as soon as you get out of the cities, you can go 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile. You're back where you started from, and almost everything is. And it's just like you said, the farmers were plotting their. I think it's I don't remember. He may come back on and tell me hectare or whatever. There's a measurement of land that is it's basically a square mile.
Hectare.
A hectare. Thank you, sir.
Which is why we had the problem with switching over to the metric system, or one of the many rumors of why we don't. I couldn't tell you.
I got a rumor why, because our system's better. No, I really don't know. I told you I don't know nothing about math. What do I care? What metric or American or it really isn't it English? We call it American system, but I think it's because we're the only ones left using it.
Well,
yes, you use so much of the imperial system. That's the irony, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Britisher, didn't you say it was the imperial system?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, the name is
and things like that, as opposed to centimeters and also I think the fluids in the metric system, it's just liters and centiliters and milliliters.
Britisher, don't you think that the name is fitting now that it's in American use?
What's that?
I mean the imperial system.
Comment.
Well,
check out one of those 2 last links I sent you.
Sure will.
Because
I'll tell you this
before. You were mentioning Durham earlier, and
You sent
sort of
this
said,
to,
well, you
to
know,
one of the religious kind that you know one day.
precisely. Yes, I was just about to mention that, of course,
I beat you
because
to it.
Durham Cathedral is sort of one of the gems of the country, and it is. I mean, obviously, it has had some Gothic additions, but at its heart, it is still a Romanesque cathedral. The difference between a Romanesque and a Gothic cathedral is mainly seen in the arches. But you will see Romanesque arches are perfectly round arches, whereas the Gothic ones are the peaked arches.
I'm trying to find words, and I usually can find them very easily. But when I look at architecture like this, how old is this church?
I mean, that cathedral goes back a long way.
I'll find it pretty quickly.
This would be a pre-Norman or an early Norman cathedral, I believe, more than likely. Durham.
Church of Christ, Blessed Mary of the Virgin Saint. Probably gonna have to look in here.
Durham Cathedral,
17 to 1900 is what it's, but it's not saying that's when it was built. Oh, around 635 AD. 635.
So here it says the choir was completed by 1096.
Okay, so that's when the church proper was done.
That would have been the choir would be finished at that point. So obviously they built it in like stages. The chapter house, partly demolished in the 18th century, was built between 1133 and 1140. So it seemed to be sort of, you know, it seemed to be
1,000 years old.
11th to 12th century. Yes. So it's been around a while.
When I see things like that, it always, well, and you know, we have some grand things here. I've been to where the Mormon Tabernacle Choir performs, and it's a pretty grand structure. But man, when I see something like this,
it's when you mentioned Durham and you said, "Oh, we have a Durham County here in America." I just sort of thought, well, I'll show you Durham Cathedral, so you've got an idea of what our Durham is.
This is what gets me, these shots like that, like this. I mean, that is freaking incredible. I don't know the word for it.
They are ginormous spaces. They really are very, very impressive, the cathedrals here.
You got to wonder, they must have built a form. I mean, I wonder how they did this. Is this just stonework? So they had scaffolding and then put stonework, or was this actually
It's all stone.
Okay.
What boggles my mind actually in this context is that one priest was supposed to preach the whole cathedral full of people, and his voice had to carry through the whole thing.
You must think to yourself too, though, that with the high ceiling like that, that if he would project just a little bit, that the people in the back could hear him just as well as the ones in the front, and it would be inducive to a very quiet congregation.
A sound box in that regard.
Yeah, I know. You got to think of the advantage to the priest, because it would definitely be conducive to a very quiet congregation. You know, because they want to hear.
Of course, you have to understand that they will have those choirs, you know, boy choirs and whatever, boys choirs in those cathedrals, with these kind of ethereal angelic hymns, which fill the space.
Hi, MC. You caught me with my pants down. We're about ready to get off, but
I was late.
No,
I've been in and out all day.
No late to it, man. Usually I go another hour, but I'm going to take off here in a few minutes. But since we've been serious, lighthearted all day and not serious at all, already dumped one stream and threw it away and started another one. It's just kind of a fun day for us here. I did want you have that question. There was a question asked of you yesterday. Do you mind answering that, or do you want to answer that, or do you want to talk about something else in like the last 10 minutes? I'll be willing to hang on here.
To be honest, I don't mind answering the question, but I think probably be easier to just do it on a different day.
All right, we'll do that tomorrow, because I don't mind that anyway. And look, MC, you're very valuable to me. But man, you sent me that article last night, and I've been listening to, you know, Putin talking about the red lines been crossed, and if any more red lines are crossed, you know. And then all I could think of today was, when that came up in my mind, was you saying, well, In fact, there was a few saying they don't even have a Navy. And man, I don't want, I hate the thought of war. I really do.
Well, nobody likes the thought of war.
I think some people
I don't
do.
think that, I honestly don't think that this is a prelude to it at this point. I'm not saying that this can't get out of control, because obviously anything can get out of control, but I just don't expect it at this point.
Well, I don't either. I want to expect the best and plan for the worst. But that said, I redid my bug out bag. It's sitting right there, and everything that I would need to leave this place right now, instantly, and not have to worry about eating and surviving, it's right there. All I had to do is get up, grab a bag, I'm gone. Grab my air rifle that's right there with about 5,022 loads. That's enough to feed me for indefinitely, 5,000 meals, because I won't pull the trigger unless I have a nice coney or a nice deer right there, and I'm about ready to put one right through the frontal lobe of that animal. And so that's how I felt about it myself, because I do believe, I mean, I am not a prepper, but I do have over a year's worth of food in this house. And because I don't idea of prepper, that sounds crazy. It's like somebody's crazy. I've always had a year's supply of food in my house ever since I could afford to have it, because I just thought that was common sense. What if, I mean, I'm not going to start naming what ifs, but what always comes to mind is like an EMP, or what if like there's some massive crash of the computer system? What if my stuff goes to hell and something happens and I don't, everything that I have is just suddenly vanishes. I have to start selling off guitars and now I'm down to nothing. Well, at least got that year's worth of food to get my act together. But that's what I did. When I seen this, I made sure I went through. I've got a nice box in there with all the fishing gear that I would ever need. And I've got another little box in there with all the lures that I would ever need, and tons and tons and tons of line and hooks. And there's where I'm at. I'm telling you, where I'm at, I could disappear in about 15 minutes too. I mean, I would be gone, disappear. If you were going to find me, you would have to be looking for me and know which direction I went. And then once I went there, I wouldn't even be knowing exactly where I was going. But it's so vast up here. In fact, the only place that's more vast than the woods of Wisconsin and where I'm at is the woods of, does anybody know, in America? Maine. Maine is the most vast, trackless wilderness in this state, in this country. I think, well, and I'm of course excluding the vast trackless Alaska. Which does seem to be.
I don't know. Montana is pretty barren.
No, we'll check it out. Montana is barren, and Wyoming is the least populated state, but the state that has the least people per square mile. Unless this changed, and I don't think it has. It's Maine.
The idea of technology going out to shit isn't all that far out, actually. We've already had a similar event in our well-remembered history, and it's been well documented as Carrington event, whereas a huge solar storm caused quite a lot of electrical trouble on Earth. And we have to remember that back then the electricity was much simpler. We weren't not as much reliant on it, and also it was much bulkier, so it's naturally more resilient. Yeah. Today's electronics and electric systems, I guess similar storm would really wreak a havoc. So you're well prepared, and that makes a lot of sense.
Thanks, Doppel. I kind of thought you were laughing up your sleeve at me when I said that, but I don't think, no matter what position you're in life either, I don't care especially if you got a bank account with money in it, because I don't believe in bank accounts with money. I do have one, but it's just what I use for what my wife uses for business transactions. I haven't paid a bill. I don't even know what to do. She does that. I have no idea. I just know that if the money's there, the bills will be paid. So that's my admission. In fact, the honey badgers, man, they kind of got on my butt about that. They were like, well, you're gynocentric. I said, gynocentric. It's up to me. You've sent me links on the side here. Oh, thanks a lot, Britisher. The Britisher's got to go. Would you like to say goodbye? Because I'm going to put a cherry on this myself.
Have a good evening, everyone. See you about.
Bye, British.
Thanks a lot, Brett.
Bye, Brett.
Yeah, so in wrapping up, I really don't think, as I was getting off on a wild tangent, but I would suggest this. If you have a partner in your life, and I don't care if you're a man with a woman partner, a woman with a man partner, a woman with a woman partner, a man with a man partner, or any combination of those things, my suggestion is you find what the other one does well and you let them do it. if your pride would get in the way because this other human being, in my case being a female, makes you feel like less of a man or uptight or whatever, then grow up. Because the smart thing to do is for me to plow the garden. I plow it. I use the hoe too. When we're weeding, I have a huge garden, almost an acre, and I maintain it very well in the summertime. And you'll see this will go down because it consumes a tremendous amount. That said, I'm getting off on another tangent there. She does the weeding close by hand because she's smaller than me. She's not quite as strong. And I don't want to see her with that gigantic Cub Cadet, but it's a rear time, but you still got it. It's still, the human being is behind it. Hold on. And I don't want to see her with that hoe getting blisters. My hands are a little soft right now because I just swing the axe during the winter, but now summer's coming. It's time to get out the hoe. That said, listen, folks, I'm going to wrap this up really quick. Remember this. A wise person once said, if you want to remove a problem from your life, put the axe to the root. Find that problem in your life. Get out your axe, get out your file, make your axe very sharp, and go to the root. Because if you try to cut that problem down here, it will spring fresh and anew. It may even grow to be stronger than it was before. But if you boldly pick up your axe, get in that arena, get a little bit of blood and mud and sweat on your face. Be a doer of deeds, whether you knock it out of the ballpark like Babe Ruth or you strike out like Casey Jones. Because in the end, the only thing, if there is no great out there, if you fade out like a match flame, gone and done for eternity, and nothing left but your memory that will fade no matter who you are, it would still be good to go to that destiny and say that I was in the arena. I gave it a shot. I did my best. And even if I failed, I was there. That said, folks, listen, be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. Be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing, your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget it. Because constant viewers, panel members, my beloved American people, President Donald Trump, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, and the presidency itself will depart from you. Hi, I see you down there in Sydney. Rub down, man. I'm going to have to just let go. I don't know how long it can take for I hit the